Hello everybody. During this semester, we were introduced to discourse analysis, and in this video, I will deal with classroom discourse and teachers' development, taken as you can see from the screen, from the book Exploring Language Discourse, Language in Action by Steve Walsh in 2011. But before scrutinizing the major points of this topic, I would like to present my outline. My outline is composed of 4 fundamental components to investigate, derived from teachers' area of development in classroom, and they will end up by a conclusion. It is quite interesting to examine the relationship between classroom discourse and teachers' development. Within the framework of discourse analysis, teachers should place classroom discourse at the center of the process. It is an interesting strategy to put an end to the traditional way of perceiving teachers as the source of knowledge and the maestro of the class par excellence. On the other hand, classroom discourse makes the teachers study their own use of language. The first area of development in classroom is improving questioning strategies. You can do that in classroom by focusing on 3 types of questions. The first one is form, and in the form of the questions either to be WH questions, which are called also open-ended questions, to promote discussion and debate, and these help the student express themselves freely without a block. And the second one is yes or no questions. These kinds of questions require short answers as yes or no. The second type of questions is content questions, which are personalized questions. They are related to personal facts. This kind of question is very important, since many students in class, they like to share their own experience, and they can speak freely, and they can express themselves, and to share the pieces of information and their personal activities with others. The third kind of questions is purpose. It is based on 3 main elements. The first one is display questions, and display questions are used to check and evaluate learners' knowledge about certain subject. And these display questions are short and to the point, in which the teacher like a kind of evaluating what they have learned and to see if they are making a kind of progress or not. The second one is questions for communication, in which the purpose of asking such a question is not to test learners' knowledge, but rather to communicate and to practice and to use the second language in class. And what is striking in this kind of question is that the teachers act as if they do not know the answer, in which they allow the students to say whatever they want and to say and express themselves without blocking the flow of interaction in class. In making the discourse more communicative, there must be, as it is stated below on the screen, comparison between communication that takes place in classroom with that of the outside or real world. When you compare the two, you see, and you will notice, as it is stated in the chapter, that their communication is less happening in classroom in comparison with the real world. In the real world, students talk a lot, but within the classroom, they talk less. So here one of the roles of teachers is to improve and to benefit from the real world experience of students, to talk a lot and to practice it within the class. And features of communication in classroom are based on 4 elements. The first one is referential questions. The second one is content feedback. The third one is wait time. The fourth one is student-initiated talk. In the first one, referential questions require great effort and depth of the processing on the part of the teachers, in which they allow the students to express themselves and to boost the kind of using the language rather than testing their knowledge. The second one, which I mentioned in the last comment of referential questions, is content feedback. Here, the teacher is trying to focus on the meaning, on what the students are saying, not how they say it, because how they say it is related to language. Because if you focus on how they say it, I mean the language, they will not express their thoughts freely. They will not talk fluently, and that will block them. The third one is wait time. It's a kind of extending the waiting time. When the teacher asks a question, he has to give enough time to students to reflect on that question and to prepare themselves to answer. And here it depends on the type of the question. If it is display questions, it requires less time, and if it is referential questions, it requires a kind. If it is a referential question, it requires enough time. It's about 7 seconds. And students initiated talk, requests for clarification and confirmation. When the student gives an answer, the teacher has not should not always accept it as it is. He has to ask for more clarification and for more confirmation, not for the sake of that student, but for the sake of the entire class, to learn from that communication and to create a kind of interaction between students within the class. Considering the last point, the third point is improving interactive decision making. And this is a very important point within discourse analysis, in which one of the most important characteristics of effective teaching is good decision making. And these decisions should help make good interaction in class, not to block interaction, but to help them. And these decisions are based on the learner's need and of the whole class need. And as you can see, this good decision making are related to the moment of teaching, not decisions that were taken before the class, but during the moment of teaching. For example, if the teacher was explaining something very important like grammar, simple past, if he comes across something very crucial and something that requires explanation, he has to take that decision that moment, even though it is not stated in his lesson plan. Okay, and here we'll talk about some principles stated in the study of Kathy Bailey in 1990 about interactive decision making. And she focuses on 6 major points. The first one is to serve the common good. The second one is to teach to the moment. And the third one is to further the lesson. The fourth one is to accommodate learning style. The fifth one is to promote students' involvement. The sixth one is to distribute wealth. Okay. The first one, to serve the common good. It means when the teacher tries to explain and tries to clarify something to one student, he has to take into consideration the entire class, and everyone in the class should benefit from that interaction between the professor and the one who answered the question. The second one, teach to the moment. It means to teach according to the needs of that moment, not according to something which is not related to the class. Then to further the lesson, to extend it if it necessitates additions and extension of the time within the class. It could be done if it is needed. And the fourth one, accommodate learning styles, is to solve some problems and to make some refinements in terms of the lesson and in terms of the plan. The fifth one is to promote students' involvements and to put an end to what is called reticence in class, in which everyone should talk, express themselves, interact, and motivate and be motivated inside the class. The last point is to distribute wealth. This point is very important. Everyone has to talk. Everyone has to express himself. Everyone has to benefit. Everyone has to benefit. Not only certain groups, because some teachers in the traditional way, they focus on those who did the listen and those who raised their hands to answer. But here the teacher has to be aware that he has to include those who do not raise their hands to answer, because maybe they know the answer and just they are afraid to express themselves. The most important thing I extracted from the text is that good decision taking are called online decision making. It is related to the moment of teaching. They are not planned. Maybe some of critics, they attack this kind of online decision making because they say that it deviates the pedagogical goals that were planned before by the teacher. And the last point, which is dealing with reticence, before explaining the studies provided by a scholar, I have first to define what is reticence. Reticence is a common problem in English as a foreign language classroom, in which reticent students refrain from speaking and participating in class, and that affects the process of learning and interaction in the classroom context. And also we notice this in different classes, especially in English classes and in classes of French and classes of foreign languages. Maybe there are so many causes that we're going to discuss right now. The problems of reticence are either the lack of confidence, the second one, unwillingness to take the risks, the third one is fear of mistakes and derision, the fourth one is fear of public failure, and last but not least, low English frequency. Maybe lack of confidence. Sometimes they are not ready to explain their thoughts because they are afraid that others will laugh at them and that they don't have the capacity or the linguistic skills to express themselves within the class. Or maybe sometimes they fear that the teacher is going to judge them of being lazy or of being stupid because this word is so offensive. And also because they are afraid of the judgments of other classmates, because maybe outside the classroom anyone judges the other, and maybe some of them will attack them of being failure. But the teacher here within the classroom discourse has to take into consideration this kind of students, I mean reticent students, and he has to provide so many solutions, and among them is lengthening wait time, to provide enough time and to give enough time to students to express themselves and to think and reflect on the answer, and give them enough time to answer. And the second one, improving questioning strategies, and not to stick to one form of question. Sometimes he has to, or she has to, focus on WH questions, referential questions, and display questions. The third one is accepting a variety of answer. Here, the teacher has to be very clever and not to block students from answering or refusing the answers of students. Maybe he's going to say, that question, your idea is very good, but let's say it from the other side. This kind of answer helps the student to improve themselves and interact in class, and not blocking them. The fourth one is making use of group work and peer support. Maybe students, they like to work, they benefit from their classmates more than from the teacher. That's why some of the scholars are asking for using this strategy a lot within the class. And the last one is to provide content feedback, which means these kind of questions should focus on content, not on focusing on grammar and linguistic features with the class. Okay, and then my conclusion to my presentation is that the classroom context is a special setting that requires a great deal of efforts by teachers to understand and boost the learning and teaching processes. And finally, the classroom discourse is very important. It's a new field in the teaching context and the teaching in the teaching field. Teachers and students will benefit from discourse analysis, and they will implement it in the class. This is the end of my lessons. Thank you, and here it is, the reference: Exploring Language, Discourse, Language in Action, London and New York Routledge. Thank you for listening.